Further debate. The member for Newmarket-Aurora.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to stand in the House today to represent my great riding of Newmarket-Aurora, which is very passionate about its trails and the government by starting off the debate on Bill 100, the Supporting Ontario's Trails Act. And just for the record, I'll be sharing my time with the member for Kitchener Centre and the member for Ajax Pickering. Mr. Speaker, I want to start the debate this afternoon by saying how proud I am to be part of one of the strongest and most cohesive governments in Ontario's history, a cohesive government that promised in our 2014 platform to support the expansion of Ontario's trail network, and a cohesive government that has taken coordinated steps to achieve that objective. As we're all well aware, the Ministry of Transport has been encouraging environmentally friendly active forms of transport through its Cycle On strategy. By improving cycling infrastructure, by making our highways and streets safer, the Ministry of Transport is supporting the expansion of our trail network and encouraging a culture of wellness in Ontario. As part of the Cycle On strategy, I was pleased to announce just a few weeks ago that the town of Newmarket, part of my riding, is receiving $325,000 in funding towards the construction of a new 5-kilometre bike lane. And I just wanted to take a few minutes, Mr. Speaker, to talk about my experience, because I have experience in two different types of jurisdictions. I live in an urban area, a residential area of Aurora. I was a town councillor there for a number of years. Aurora has some of the most beautiful off-road trails that you can find that meander through the Oak Ridge Moraine. But what I learned when I began, I walked those trails with my children for many years, Mr. Speaker, and took my dog there for walks. But what I learned through the advocacy of phenomenal people like Klaus Verenberg, who lives in Aurora and is a real urban active transportation advocate, is that there's a difference between a recreational trail and an active transportation trail. And I hadn't realized that till I became a town councillor, that with good urban planning, we can put in place trails that lead from a child's house to the school that lessen the need for them to walk along a busy, smelly, dangerous street. That business people, when they're leaving the St. John Side Road to the north end of Aurora, can walk through the beautiful Aurora Arboretum in a beautiful trail setting down to the GO station on Wellington. And I'm constantly amazed at the number of people who do that sort of thing, who move from point A to point B on business or shopping or school using off-road trail systems. So not all trails are recreational. There are many trails in urban settings that get us from point A to point B, and it's exceptionally important that those who are involved with urban planning make sure that we put those plans in place. So this year we saw the Para-Pan Am Secretariat also taking steps to fulfill the promise to Ontarians, Mr. Speaker. Those games inspired us to lead more active lives, and then went a step further, leaving Ontario with an amazing legacy in the Pan Am Trail, over $3.5 million invested to fill in over 250 kilometers of gap in our trails network. And of course, the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport is leading the Supporting Ontario Trails Act with support from the Attorney General, who's overseeing the modifications to the Occupiers Liability Act, and the Natural Resources and Forestry, who oversee changes to the Public Lands Act. 5 different groups overseen by 4 different ministers, all working in tandem to achieve one purpose, a purpose created and driven by stakeholders. This is a grassroots piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker. We engaged over 250 stakeholders to develop Bill 100, and before the opposition asked, yes, of course, we consulted numerous property owners. We held regional consultation sessions not only in Toronto. We held them in Thunder Bay, in Ingersoll, in North Bay, and in Ottawa. Our government held in-person conversations with Aboriginal groups, with 80 municipalities, with health organizations, tourism organizations, academics and farmers, and of course, Mr. Speaker, with our trail organizations. After that, we posted Bill 100 on the Environmental Bill of Rights Registry, where it was open to public comment for 48 days. We took each of the 80 online comments to heart, Mr. Speaker. They were reviewed by senior policy staff and lawyers by 4 separate ministries. I know that in their lead-off speech, the opposition claimed that we didn't consult on Bill 100, and I can say, Mr. Speaker, that that simply isn't true, and the record bears this out. The bill has been in development since 2013. And while our government has taken great care to understand what the sector wants and needs to balance the desires of diverse stakeholder groups, I got the impression from the PC lead-off speech that they listened to one stakeholder and just one stakeholder. As we start debate, I think it's important, Mr. Speaker, to remind everyone that Bill 100 is an enabling piece of legislation. And what I mean by that is that Bill 100, if passed, would provide landowners with additional options, additional tools for establishing land arrangements. Landowners will have the option to continue to use existing arrangement if that's what they want to do. When we're doing our broad consultations, Mr. Speaker, we heard from landowners who said the current system was working for them. Farmers who said they wouldn't use a trail easement because each year they rotate which section of their land they allow local snowmobile clubs to use. And we talked with landowners who wanted a way to carry on their generosity into perpetuity by registering an easement on title. We spoke with trail organizations who had invested large quantities of money in building bridges for trail users and wanted some assurance that they would be able to continue to use the infrastructure they had paid for. You see, Mr. Speaker, this option isn't for everyone and was never intended to be used by everyone. That is why Bill 100 would create an additional voluntary system to establish trail easements that individuals may or may not choose to use. As we continue to debate, I know that our members will continue to highlight what Bill 100 will do if passed, and we will continue to debunk the misconceptions that some members of the opposition seem adamant in articulating during their speaking turns. Mr. Speaker, I look forward to the continued debate on the Supporting Ontario's Trails Act and will call on all members of this House to support both Bill 100 and Ontario's amazing trail network. Thank you.